Good morning, everybody.
Hey, Bill. It's good to see you here.
Yes.
And Lisa, it's great to see you as well. And I know
Here we
our
are.
audience, just like Lisa, is now looking at the screen going, that doesn't look like Glenn Ingram. Well, we have a special show for you here, everyone. Let me go back to the beginning and welcome everyone here to Blabbit. It is great to see you here on the show. And yes, we had a last minute 11th and a half hour substitution for the indomitable Glenn Ingram, and that would be Mr. Bill Huff, who has been on the show numerous times. This is kind of this is like a reunion here because Lisa has been on the show, Bill has been on the show. We're so comfortable, and we really hope all of you watching and listening are comfortable as well. If it is your first time, welcome. My name is Paul Geiger. I am a New York City public speaking consultant and executive communication coach. I work on making sure messaging is clear, making sure that it resonates, and therefore making sure there's engagement, trust, and persuasion. Those are all biggies. Hey, Bill, good to see you, my friend. Please, for those who don't already know, tell them a little bit about you.
Good morning, everybody. William Huff Jr. here. Friends call me Bill. And boy, where do I start? We'll keep it brief, though, because the person of the hour is Lisa. I'm a marketing consultant and coach. I help businesses get more business from the internet and help them automate their lives so that they can focus on what's important, which for many of us is a wide variety of topics, right? But get them to focus on freedom and their family and the things that are important. So that's what I do. I've known Glenn. He and I go way back. We were both in excuse me. We were both in the same place at the same time during the first Gulf War. So that's one of our connections, and now we do business together. And like I said, I've been here on Blabbit before. Always good to come back. It's always good to see you, Paul. And I'm excited here to help out my buddy Glenn and Paul. And then Miss Lisa, I'm looking forward to meeting you, meeting you, I guess, for the first time. Please tell me a little bit about yourself. I know you've been here before, but some people may not have seen you. So take it away.
Unheard of.
Can you believe that? Unbelievable.
Nobody misses an episode of Blabbit. Give me a break, Bill. Hey, nice to cyber meet you as well. Mm-hmm. And thank you both for your service. I did not know that part. So thank you so much.
Oh, my pleasure.
I'm a speaker, a humorist, an embarrassing mom, a prank enthusiast. I podcast. I do a lot of things, and people say, oh, you're so busy. Just today, oh, you're so busy. I said, no, everything I do is a choice. You kidding me? Mm-hmm. I know how to say no.
That's right.
But not to this show. Thanks for having me back.
Well, it's really interesting for anyone who's been watching multiple episodes of Blabbit. We have had Lisa on as a guest before. But Lisa actually watches Blabbit on a fairly consistent basis because she chimes in with questions that we do answer on air live. So we certainly want to offer that up to anyone who is watching the show right now to please chime in because we love to interact with our audience as well as with each other. So Lisa, thank you so much for being here. Bill, thank you so much for being here.
You bet. My pleasure.
I'm a little curious. You have done a couple of TED Talks and TEDx Talks. And just for our audience, tell us what those topics were and how, I guess my curiosity is, were the audiences different and how did that affect what it was that you were talking about?
Yes, thank you for asking. I was very lucky to get into my first TEDx last year in April. So the pandemic, I'm not sure if you heard of that little thing that was going on, was still, hanging out. And so that was so different than the second one. And I was so lucky to meet and train online with everyone. There is quite a system of the actual TEDx skeleton form, what you're going to do. Loved learning that process. I love teaching it now. And in that training, we knew we were going to do this whole event on Zoom. And it was in Bloomington, Indiana. And then one day, one of the gals said, couldn't we kind of meet up? I mean, couldn't we do it safely? And I'm like, why wouldn't I have said that? I'm known as being a creative and an improv person. So my kudos go off to Melissa for saying that. We did end up in person. Instead of a full audience, we could only have 100 bodies in that historic theater, period. We're talking tech, sound, video, photo, behind the stage. Everybody, anybody in the audience, anybody you wanted to bring could not exceed 100 total in a giant theater. So I'm still craving that next TEDx where we are still able to meet, as I used to do my comedy sketch shows to a full audience. I crave that energy. So that was just incredible to finally meet my cohorts in person. Was like meeting your somebody that you have a star crush on. I'm so grateful for that opportunity. So to actually take the stage and stand on that red dot. The second one was in August of last year. And that one, still an excellent opportunity, but it was through Brazil. So those online meetings consisted of a language, many languages I did not know, that many of us didn't know what each other was saying. So the training was different. But then on that one, it totally was on Zoom. And you had to have your 2-camera production professionally done. And luckily, I happened to be married to a professional videographer, voiceover guy that could do a 2-camera production. I didn't want to spend for a theater. The cheapest I could find was $500. So we took our piping and drapes to my ex-husband's karate studio and took that over for an afternoon. Now there's a country song. Always stay friends with your exes. You never know when you need heavy stuff moved or to borrow their karate studio in which to make your faux TEDx studio. And so I got my 2-camera thing done, bought my red dot rug, and I did a TEDx through Brazil, sort of.
Well, you know what? I know what the title of that country song would be.
Yes?
All my exes have black belts, so I stay friends with them.
No kidding. No kidding. So my first topic was how humor saved my life. That's an actual story, and it's also in my book. And my second TEDx was pranks for the memories, and that was completely about my passion for pranks. Some people, you stop reading the comments. That's my first advice to anyone doing a TEDx. Go out there, be brave, and know that the audience loves you and is proud of you and wants you to do well. That's for any speaker. Don't even take the stage till you put that thought in your head. Secondly, never read the comments, because those are the people not brave enough to step up and do it. They're just sitting doing, whatever. And they're wishing, and so they would rather send out the ugly. Just remember, when people send out ugly, they're really putting it in their own body. So bleh. Some people thought that second TEDx was a prank, and it was not. I share a few prank stories. And during the day, I work with police. And yes, I prank the police. And my husband's like, what if you get shot or whatever? Well, in training, I've already been tased, so I'm good. But no, I'm like, what if that's my exit story? That is a cool story.
That's a good way.
I'm all about the story.
I know, it's a good way to go out. Now, Bill, if I remember correctly, you have a martial arts background. Am I correct?
Well, you are. I've made a couple notes. Lisa and I are going to have to connect after this, because one of the things I've always wanted to do is a TEDx talk. And number 2, yes, I've been doing the martial arts 32 years and counting, and I still own my martial arts school. It's one of my endeavors. So smart to keep in touch with your ex and stay friends, because you never know when you need a dojo. So good for you.
Exactly. I did get my black belt in my 20s, and he and I were running a studio at that time, and I went into labor in the karate studio with my first. So and then I got to be there when that firstborn got his black belt, and his dad broke his nose. Whoops.
Welcome to the club.
Another cool story.
Well, it's like, it reminds me of that T-shirt a lot of us veterans have, which is, but did you die?
Yes,
right. But did you die? Did you die? It's a great story.
Oh, rub some dirt in it.
Yeah,
that's right. You'll be fine.
Now, Lisa, you were talking about individuals who actually have the boldness to step up on stage and deliver a talk. What about people who have just a little bit of trepidation about going through that process? In other words, public speaking anxiety, discomfort, nerves, whatever it is you want to call it. Some people hide it well, some people don't. And what do you advise to anyone who is going through second guessing themselves in terms of giving a speech?
Well, thank you, first of all, Paul, for breaking down the word trepidation for me. Yes, it is something we all have. You can't tell me any comic doesn't even still get the nerves. I'm in many comedy groups that people still get nerves. But what I used to tell kids when I was teaching karate is take those nerves and that scaredness and pretend you're excited, and then work on that feeling of actually being excited. And now those butterflies are actually the feeling of wanting to do well. And I now to adults, I say that feeling is meaning that you're feeling that the audience wants you to do well. We really have to put that in our brains. Know
Right.
your talk, know it inside out. And in a TEDx, you're not allowed to rely on slides. They're up there, but you do not. I thought that little box on the stage was feeding you your notes. Nope, not allowed to do that. So you can see your slides if you have them. It's so much better if you don't rely on slides in my brain. Yes, a lot of them you need to show the picture or the graph or something. Know your talk inside out and backwards. And somebody told me a trick about memorization that's pretty cool. And I've done shows forever and I have my own style of memorization, but I loved this. And it's a technique of walking through your house in order. So you guys can both picture which door you're going to walk in, usually, whether it's your garage, your front door, where you might set your keys. Next, you go to what room? Maybe you check your mail. All that stuff is, we generally have an order. Each spot in the house is one of your notes, one word of your talk to help you memorize. You can picture that while you're talking.
Sure.
It was a really cool visual for me. Everybody has their own style, but your dog is your audience. Your plants are your audience. Always move where you're at. Go give your speech again on your deck to your friends, Facebook with someone. I mean, Zoom talk with someone. Know your talk inside out. Pick it up from the middle today. Start it from the backwards another day, because you will have a hiccup. And when they record the TEDx, obviously live is live, but they told me in the first one, if you make a mistake, we'll shout the line because you have it printed and give it to someone, just like in a show, and they will start you up again and they will edit it when it's put out. Luckily, that did not happen to anyone in our event.
Well, that's great. And I understand the reasoning behind making sure that you don't actually read your notes, because we do all relate much better. We love the sound of fresh cooking. We want to make sure that it's not a canned performance.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh.
You want it to be real. I know a couple of the things that I taught before, and similar to the martial arts, like you said, Lisa, is we used to say, hey, the trick to handling butterflies in your stomach is to get them all to fly in formation, right?
Nice.
So it's natural to have butterflies. You just got to get it together, right? And get them to fly in formation and be able to use that, like you said, as fuel. That's smart. And I know one thing that's helped me, because I've given talks before in front of a pretty large groups. When I focus on the message, I feel great. When I focus on what I'm trying to say, or I'm focusing on what the crowd thinks, I want to die. And that's the difference. It's just like, hey, just focus on your message, being real and being congruent and connecting, and you'll be fine. At least that's been my experience.
Yes. And no two talks should ever be the same. Yeah. My background is majorly through improvisation. So my notes are words. And there are times I will go back to a podium. I never use a podium. I'm always wandering around, because I'm an interactive speaker. But I will go back to the podium if I realize, okay, that shiny squirrel better be reined in a little bit. But I play with the audience. No two talks are ever the same, but I definitely have points that I need to make so that I know that I've given them my story. We've connected, and you've got to give a call to action. What is that you are inviting your audience to do at the end? How did you? I don't like to say I'm a motivational speaker. I just think that's oversaturated as much as the word authentic. We're all authentic. Knock it off. So what is it that you brought to them that day? Because at the same time, you're getting back from that audience. You should.
Right. Well, one of the things that I tell my clients, and I always experience one of those, are you kidding me moments, which is, if you feel like you're getting nervous in a situation like that, and you do need to course correct, focus on your breathing. And most people look at me like, well, wait a minute. I'm supposed to focus on something that I will do automatically in my sleep. How is that going to help me while I'm up here basically, falling apart or feeling like I have a stomach ache and I want to go home to mommy?
Exactly.
But really, if you work on that breathing prior to going up into the spotlight, but also focus on the breathing while you're there, because nobody ever believes that what you're doing is actually breathing if you do it the right way. All they think is he's really thinking about it. That's all. If you know how to integrate the breathing in, it's actually one of the first things that sort of slips through your grasp when you're feeling nervous when you get on
Right.
stage. So focus on the breathing, and it's not the only thing, but it should definitely be a foundational thing that you focus on.
Well,
Yes.
it's physiologically impossible for your level of nerves or emotion to stay at this level when you take in a huge deep breath and oxygenate your system. It's physiologically impossible.
Right.
It can't not relax you. So that is the key. And we forget it. Most people don't even know that. Why do we tell our kids when they start to lose their stuff, hey, take a deep breath, right? Which our kids hate. Stop it. You always tell me to calm down. Well, that's because the pilot's left the wheelhouse. You're a nut right now, right? So, I mean, it's something to remember about the breathing. It's as simple as it is and as natural as it is. It's under taught and underutilized.
You'd be amazed how many people say to me as a speech coach, I don't really think that I breathe when I speak. What? How are you making sound if you're not breathing?
That's right.
You've got to be breathing out. So that has to happen. Now, I'll take it one step further in terms of preparation. Taking a deep breath is really great because you are oxygenating yourself. But if you hold that breath before exhaling, you will increase your sense of control. You actually will. And that's a physical thing as well. You take in that breath, you just hold it for a moment, and then decide to let it go. This is in preparation. And you will feel more in control. It works like a charm.
Yeah. One of the good exercises that we use, and I still use it, I talk to my kids, is, take a deep breath in as deeply as you can, filling all the way up to the belly button, not up here, but down at the diaphragm, down at the belly. Right. And then however long it takes to take that breath in, you hold it for a count of 5 at least. And then when you breathe out, the breath out has to be twice as long as the breath in.
Perfect.
And that, I mean, just one of those will be like, whoa, your whole body will start to chill. If you do that for a minute or two.
That's taught in therapy, and that's called square breathing. So if you think about bringing the breath in, holding it, letting it out, and then that pause again. Mm-hmm. So the beauty is in those pauses. And that is a technique for therapy. And people like myself with anxiety, when I wake in the night, I just startle awake, and it's just a really nutty thing. And so I have to do square breathing.
Yeah, that's an important step there. The one that you just mentioned, the fourth leg or the fourth side, pausing before you breathe in again.
Yes.
So you don't hyperventilate.
That's why picturing the square really helps.
Right. All right. So
I didn't know it had a name.
Yeah.
now I know what to call it.
Now you're a therapist.
Oh, great.
That's right. There's an amazing amount of power that goes into giving something a name.
Yes.
It's really, it becomes a tool at that point, as opposed to just being a concept. When you actually, I'm very fond of giving things names.
Yes. Just yesterday at work, the tech guy asked me the name of my printer, and I said, I've been calling him Stefan. Turns out he meant the code number, but that's okay.
Yeah. I mean, when I'm interacting and I say something that isn't quite appropriate, people give me names too. So, that always helps.
Always.
So here we are podcasting, but you, Lisa, you have a podcast of your own.
And today is International Podcast Day. What?
Oh, you planned it that way, didn't you?
I do. I'm a planner. I'm an improv and planner.
Good.
Yes, so I posted on my Facebook page. If anybody wants to tag what their favorite episode of my show is, you get in a drawing for some fun mail. Trust me, I send fun mail. So yes, Mine is Stranger Connections, and I celebrate wonderfully weird people, their quirky stories, and we always wrap it up with a prank story. So it's just fun. I've met great people. I've been doing this about 2 years. And I also think it's just a great networking tool. No, I'm not rich. I've been asked that several times. Are you making money off of it? I said, not yet, but I'll take a sponsor that doesn't have to do with shaving man parts. That seems to be the only one offered to me right now.
Okay.
Not that I'm against manscaping. I think that's a great thing. I just don't think it coincides with me celebrating wonderfully weird people. I don't know. If they're hairy, I don't carry. So anyway, that's my podcast. And
Oh
it's
God.
just been fun and
Tell,
fabulous.
tell us about a memorable prank that
I was going to ask that. Good.
yeah. Just one that pops into your head or several. It doesn't matter. We could use a little bit of that here on Blabbit.
Always a prank story from the show.
Either way, I mean, whatever one of your I've heard a couple of yours, and I don't mind if you repeat them for our audience. But what is memorable to you? What's top of mind?
One is when I was a server at a restaurant, but I really wasn't. So I was hired to be to prank this gal's sister for her 40th. I knew ahead of time that the gal was extremely sensitive about turning 40. I got all the goods on her. She hates smoking. She hates this. She hates that. So I went to the club ahead of time and I talked to the manager, and immediately she was in on it and said, yes, I could be a fake worker. I got a polo. I got a apron and a serving tray, and it was a buffet style party. And so I was clearing dishes. My friend ignored me. I knew who the birthday girl was. I had 3 pieces of gum in my mouth as I was clearing dishes and talking. Oh, happy 50th, because she was sensitive about turning 40. I was annoying as heck. Then I came out with my tray and I'm like, does anybody have a lighter? I'm about to go on break. I need a smoke so bad. You have no idea. And her eyes got huge. Then I took a wine glass from a gal and I said, oh, you're going to need a new glass. You really mucked this up with your lipstick. That's not good. I mean, I'm putting down her guests. My friend had to turn away. She had to turn away several times. And it got better. Eventually, my cell phone rings on my tray. How inappropriate. And I'm like, no, I'm working for this girl's 50th. And again, her eyes are huge. And I'm like, can't talk right now. Smack, smack, my gum. In walks one of my sons, who was like 7 at the time. Mommy, the windows don't shut in the car and it's starting to rain. And then in comes his little brother. Well, my husband at the time was out in the car with them. Let me just be clear. Because, hey, I don't take pranks lightly. So the manager comes up to me. I tell my kids, well, wait over there on the bench until this lady's party is done. They're old and they're going to be done soon. So the manager comes out, puts her arm around me and says, can you come with me? She takes me over to a corner office and dies laughing. She said, I'm supposed to fire you. It's at that point I came out and I had a whole poem about her from her sister, and it was all very complimentary and very fun. And she came up and she grabbed my shoulders and she said, I hated you. And then I got the biggest hug. And my boys were happy. We went out for ice cream. Yeah. Oh, my boys have always been my sidekicks. So they're 24 and 26 now. So this is all they know.
It's good to have accomplices.
That's one of my favorite stories. I've pranked telemarketers as well. Have we talked about that, Paul?
No, that's a new wrinkle that we did not cover in the last Blabbit. I would love to hear how you
tell.
Most people just don't answer or hang up, but
that's because now it's the robocalls. Yeah, that's robocalls, and let me just say, if you have an elder in your life, please let them know that just because a phone number looks local, it's not. It's not always local. And never, ever give out bank information or anything. If you aren't sure who it is, ask them to call you through the police department. They're generally going to hang up on you. If you are asked for any gift cards, to get a gift card, to get, to give up your bank number, your social security, any of that, please don't give it out. And call a family friend to say, hey, you know what? I just don't know about this. I work at a police department and I can tell you a lot of people have sent cash and gift cards because they believed a family member was hurt or that they were in trouble with the IRS. IRS is not calling you. Social Security is not calling you. So I had to say that because I just dealt with one this morning before I took off to be here. And back in the day, my first hubby and I, we had this old answering machine that was a cassette tape, and it would record incoming and outgoing calls. And we worked opposite shifts. And so a joy became, this is back in the early 90s. So we didn't have, Google in your hand. We had, just whatever. I still had encyclopedias. But when a telemarketer would call, it was a real person. And so we would record, and it was me first. I would steer them away. Well, this one guy calls, and he is definitely in Cubbyland. He was repeating everything I said to all of his coworkers.
Hello? Now it's going on behalf of NRA. Is Thompson there?
No, I haven't seen him for like 2 days.
You haven't seen him for 2 days?
No, he said, I can go get the spaghetti sauce, and then...
He's what?
He says...
He's out?
He said, no, I'm trying to tell you. He goes, I can get the spaghetti sauce. I'll be right back, and... It's been 2 days.
He did what now? What was that again?
He went out to get the spaghetti sauce.
He went out to get spaghetti sauce and he hasn't come home for 2 days?
Right.
Wow.
Do you know where he's at?
No, I don't. I'm calling on behalf of the NRA. I don't know where he's at.
The NRA, is he in trouble?
No.
He's in trouble?
No, he's not in trouble, ma'am. No.
Are you an officer?
No, I'm not an officer.
Okay.
And, I'm not an officer. No, this is a call for membership in the National Rifle Association.
Membership? He doesn't remember anything, especially where he lives. He's been gone 2 days.
Okay, well,
No.
I'm sorry. I can let you go, okay, ma'am?
If you see him, would you have him call me?
Yeah, okay. If I see him, I'll have him call you.
Okay, that's a good idea.
Bye now.
Thanks.
That's awesome.
That's a good
It
one.
was,
That's
if
vintage,
the light was
right?
on, we were having fun. We knew, oh, she got one or he got one. And I've got 22 phone calls now that I used to have on cassette. Then I had them on CD, and now I have it on iTunes.
Ah, that's great.
You don't have to rewind iTunes with the pencil eraser.
I tell you, Lisa, that is such evidence of commitment in terms, and I know you in all of your training and all of your experience, commitment is a big deal. You've got to see it all the way through.
It matters. If you're, they called me, man, and I was probably eating. So that's on them.
So, Bill, what has been your experience with telemarketing, or just, I mean, obviously you're a marketing wizard, but I mean, back in the day, what was your experience? Did you engage with that?
I'm kind of a sadist in the fact that back in the day, I would take the telemarketer calls and play along because I was so interested in marketing. I wanted to hear how they did.
Oh,
like how's your spiel? Is your spiel any good? Right.
Yeah,
and some of them I learned things from. I'm like, man, this guy's good.
Do you remember a tip you picked up?
Yeah. And if I started to get through it and I could tell they were terrible or just, checking the boxes, then I would just be like, yeah, I got to go. So that was me then. But yeah, now she's right. They're all robocalls. And I will second what she said about the elderly and phone calls. Unfortunately, my mother was a victim of that because they scared her and said, hey, one of the scams they have is that we found a car loaded with drugs and your ID was in it. And if you don't work with us and do the following things, then, we're going to have to come arrest you. And then, it's going to be right. And she fell for it.
It's all about getting them to react. I'm so sorry to hear that.
Getting them scared and then making moves. And my sister and I found out about it, after the fact. She confessed to what happened, and we were like, Mom, why didn't you just hang up the phone and call us? All you had to do, just hang up and call us. And but so yeah, be careful about that. She's right. But yeah, telemarketers, man, if you're still doing telemarketing, I don't know what's going on. I mean, there's just so many other better ways to.
Well, that's why I was saying back in the day
to get business. And I remember because, I was technically a telemarketer at times with my martial arts business. She remembers, right? Remember the lead boxes, and they'd put their name in
and cold calls. I whipped out the
so you're going around town, you're gathering all the slips, and then you're starting to call these people. And, oh God. And it was one of the things that made me get into marketing, because I'm like, this sucks. There's got to be a better way to do this. There's got to be,
Now, there was a call I got at the police department. They didn't know they were calling a police department, didn't hear me answer that way. And the guy was trying to pull whatever. And I ended up off duty. It was like right towards the end of my shift. And I'm not an officer. I'm support staff and dispatch. But it was towards the end of my shift. And the guy, I finally said, you know what? I'm not falling for it. I want to ask you why you do this. You are hurting elders. They believe you. You're making them react. You're scaring them. How in the world are you doing this? I wish I had recorded it. I couldn't. But he actually stated he lived in India and there are no jobs. And if he leaves, his family will shun him. I mean, whether he was BSing me, I don't know. But it just gave me this other side of he has to make money or he can't feed his family. And there were just like no jobs available. So I don't know if that was crap or not, but it was just, we got into this conversation and I said to him, would you ever be on my show? And no, I couldn't get him to connect with me, but it was interesting.
That is, and this is, this will be off topic, so we won't stay long on it, but there is unfortunately a percentage of humans out there. I call it, they're just missing a chip. There's just a setting that they don't have, which allows them to do A, B, and C, which those of us who have the chip, it's unfathomable. We would never even dream of doing it or trying it or acting that way. So that's just, but that's the wonder and the fascination of the human psyche and how we're all made up, how we're raised, right? You don't know how someone, you don't know what they came through, how they were programmed, what their reality was, who remembers Michael Vick and the dogfighting thing back in, what was that, in the early 2000s? And everybody was so mortified. And I wasn't mortified at all because I was familiar with the area he was raised. And I'm like, yeah, that's what they do. Yeah. Some people go to church on Sundays, that area, they fight dogs. That's just what he was raised with. If you don't know what's wrong, how do you know what's wrong?
Well, and interestingly, if you take something that would be considered across the board to be marginally moral to do or not to do, and you go 2 degrees of separation. In other words, obviously, what we've been talking about is telemarketers preying on especially elderly people's fears. But isn't there a sliver of marketing, probably a large sliver, that deals with finding out somebody's pain points and offering a solution? 100%. So isn't that kind of 2 degrees away from leaning into fear in a certain, I mean, obviously you don't want to go after vulnerable populations, but in a sense, you're trying to push somebody's buttons in a lot of ways.
That's a great point. You're right. That's how commercials are made. That's how political ads are made. You're right.
Right.
Yeah.
So, it's not that far removed.
Yeah. Context matters too, because in relation to that, yes, we're as marketers, if you're a good marketer or a good salesperson or whatever, even a good speaker, you spend that 80-90% of the time in the pain, because the pain is what connects. That's the thing that touches them, because that's the pain that they're in. From a marketing and sales standpoint, yes, I want to go after that pain, but I'm doing it in the context where I am hoping it's been framed that you've come to me because of the message and the thing that I am representing or offering. And that thing seems to be the solution for your pain. But in order for you to trust me and know me and like me, we have to get to know each other, talk about each other. We have to get congruent and connected. And our thing that is the commonality between us in the stage of the marketing or sales process is the pain and the solution. But you're right. What is that? What's that saying? Along with great power comes great responsibility, right? If you are a good marketer or a good salesperson, in my opinion, you have a moral obligation to use it for good, right? Because if you're out there screwing people over, selling a crappy product, but you're really good at getting to their pain and getting their money, shame on you. And that's not going to last long in this digital age. The word will get out.
Oh, and all this stuff on TikTok where they're saying, you want to know more? Ask me how. Ask me how. And they won't just come out and say it. I have no respect for that kind of marketing that says a lot of it is about weight loss, but I feel good and drop me a DM and I'll tell you more. I already know you're going to charge 3 times the amount that I could just get whatever it is, or that is, voodoo tactics. I don't respect that kind of marketing whatsoever.
Mm-hmm.
It's a little bit triangular shaped, if you know what I'm saying.
Yeah, I get you. Yeah, there's it's funny that you mentioned TikTok. I've got an article saved on my phone. Since we're all parents or grandparents, I'm not sure what everybody's status is. A scientific journal article came out called TikTok Brain. And it talks about a scientific study done that today's technology overall, particularly social media, video, everything else, is actually rewiring our children's brain to have ADHD.
Absolutely. Whoa. Look at babies and toddlers. Mm-hmm. There was that video of a little girl with a magazine, and when she tried to make the picture big or move by touching it and it didn't, she cried because it was a magazine. It wasn't the iPad.
Yeah, I saw another one where a parent asked the kid, "Hey, when Daddy's on the phone, what hand signal would you use to say Daddy was on the phone?" And we all did this, right? Yeah, the kid went like this.
Oh yeah, right.
Because
Yeah. It's what they know.
Well, my friend's 1.5-year-old doesn't speak with words yet, but she can FaceTime you. She can take her mom's phone, open it up, and FaceTime her dad anytime she wants.
See, Jobs, he was all about intuition, intuitiveness. That was his whole thing, is like, how do we make it intuitive, to where you can just look at it and, I think it's this.
Nailed it.
Yeah, and look how much he simplified it. I mean, I have a good friend of mine who I've known him since we were 10 years old. He's a PhD in child development, and he works in the school system in Palm Beach County, working with the at-risk kids and helping with their curriculum and everything. And his description is us versus the kids and everybody now is we're digital immigrants and they're digital natives. Like, they've never not known the internet and tablets and phones and iPhone. Right. They've never not known it. And I know as a parent, my wife and I, stress isn't the right word, but it's a pressure point. Hey, how much time on the electronics? What else can we do? What's good electronics? What's good? But and you're trying to balance this, because the Clint Eastwood Gran Torino part of me, kids are on electronics, right? But they are digital natives. I mean, they use them for homework. They use them for communicating with their friends. They use it for creating things for school. My daughter's very creative. She's written short stories. She wrote it on the laptop. And, so, I mean, it's the technology. It's so integrated. Setting boundaries and everything is difficult. It is. And making sure that, is there such a thing as good technology? Good screen time? Yeah, there is. But, discerning that, it's a journey. It's a challenge.
While you were talking, Bill, I just had a memory of writing reports in high school and literally having the yellow lined paper and tearing pieces off and putting them in the right order. Basically a precursor to cut and paste. Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah. Really, yellow paper, red pen therapy, baby. It's the best. Yeah. I'm old. Look, I still buy all physical books. I mean, I got a whole other room with a whole bunch more, and this goes all the way around this way. I mean, I love books and writing, and even though I have atrocious penmanship.
They say that puts it in your head better is to write, and to put it on paper connects it to your brain in a different way than to type. I can type really fast, but it's not going to retain as much as the handwritten.
Yeah, and I see it, and I like. Here's an example. This is one of my. I like taking the notes, right? And then you can get the yellow sticky, and okay, this is that topic. Oh, what's that thing where I wanted to learn? That's right. I did a talk and I studied this thing, right? Oh, well, it's right here. And you can have that on hand, or, and just, I want to pass.
Sounds like somebody needs to write their book.
Oh yeah.
Well, I wrote my first one, which was terrible. I did it for the wrong reasons, but the content was good. It was called Bullies Suck. I wrote that one, 12, 13 years ago. It's still on Amazon. I need to rewrite it. But that's another one.
Yeah, because you get to add in cyberbullying.
Oh, yeah. And this one, this is a project I've thought of. I got up this idea I'd actually like to do a real book for this. I got this idea. One of my mentors gave it to me like 15, 20 years ago. It says, get a book for just ideas, right? Money-making ideas, conceptual ideas, write down sayings that you think are cool or whatever. Well, I've been doing that for, 15, 20 years. And there's so much just good stuff. I'll use good language. There's so much good stuff in here. I want to turn this into a book and give it to my kids. Because, they're just...
You want to, or you're going to?
No, I want to and going to, right?
Good.
And kind of like that saying, the key with butterflies is to get them to fly in formation. That's one of the sayings that's written in there.
You and your quotes.
You can do a whole...
You are a quote machine.
Yeah, you can do a whole chapter just on that. Yes. Stories that go along with it, the whole deal.
Well, you could just have a quote to start each page. Yeah,
exactly.
For sure. That's
phrases,
kind of how I did
to live by.
My creativity journal I made, and this is only local. It's not on Amazon, and it's what ifs and why nots because of my improvisation world. But I just have a prompt at the top and then lined paper and not because maybe you want to doodle, but there's just maybe you aren't really inspired today. Maybe you're writing your book, Bill, and you're just like, you know what? I'm not sure of direction. So I open it up and you can find one. This one is plan an afternoon to spend time with children. Let them take the lead on exploring imagination and thoughts without boundaries. On a different afternoon, do the same with a senior citizen. Take notes always.
Always.
I saw a social media post just this morning, and I forget who posted it. I forget what platform, probably LinkedIn.
If you liked it, it was probably mine.
Yeah, and it could easily have been one of yours, Lisa. But it was very simple. It said, whether you have a good book in you or not, just do it, because the writing of the book is a very cathartic thing. And I'm all for catharsis.
What's your books behind you, Paul?
Well, I've got, what do I have? Oh, the world's hardest music trivia book, which was a gift because everybody thinks that I have a musical encyclopedia up here. Ooh. I tend to geek out on producers, musicians, recording studios, decades. Yeah. And I know all the connectivity between a lot of different recordings. My best friend is the same way, and we just inform each other on little tidbits that we may have lost or forgotten along the way. So we have that. Stephen Hawking, A Brief History of Time. Bruce Springsteen, Born to Run, and then Jonathan Rauch, The Happiness Curve.
Oh, I've heard of that.
That's my book.
Let's see your book. Tell us about that.
My book, Better Business Speech.
I do, but what if everybody in the world doesn't?
Well, they should.
All right, so flip her open and give me something.
Give you something in here? Okay. Ooh, this one's already signed.
By the author?
Yes.
Does it say to me, I love me?
All right, let's see. Let me go to something here. Breathing with Authority. We were talking about breathing. Yes. That is chapter 7, Powerful Speech Techniques. A very common goal in business is to develop a more authoritative voice. In order to speak with authority, you first have to consistently breathe with authority. Most people just don't breathe very well. They don't realize that their breath is their vocal fuel. It seems pretty obvious that you need more breath when trying to speak louder, but good breath support helps eliminate so many other vocal problems too. It is the key to relaxing your voice so you can sound confident, poised, and authoritative.
Boom. That is accurate. Nice.
Book drop.
Do you talk to your clients also about standing still and posturing and things like that?
I do. Well, that all comes under the heading of body language.
Yes.
Which would be, it's a combination of facial expressions, eye contact, posture, and then gesturing. So it's all of those things. And interesting, going back to something you brought up a little bit earlier, Lisa, about being present on the stage. And that's something that I've worked with people on in the past, and I still do when they're talking about doing something in person. Not as much lately because most of what we're doing is virtual. But when you are commanding a stage, it's interesting. A lot of people just wander around the stage. But there's a technique for walking and talking with authority, and also creating spheres of presence and experience based on where you are on the stage. So it's a really interesting thing I talk about that in the book as well, sort of laying out in front of you, imagine a rectangular carpet, and then divide that carpet into 6 boxes, and then move with authority from one box into the next. Once you get into that box, you stop, you establish, and that gives you your authority. So there's walking and talking, then there's walking, then talking, and that requires that you be okay with silence too.
Oh, yes.
Amazingly, listeners are okay with silence.
Yes.
Because they really do pay attention to what comes right after the silence.
Well, what's that universal musical principle? This music is made by the space between the notes.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah, and that's
I think what you stated about the rectangular shape, we've covered squares, triangles, and now a rectangle.
I was going to say triangle. Yeah.
I think that's great because we could have that imaginary rectangle anywhere when we're practicing our talk.
Right.
And there again could be the memorization of, L1 up here, I'm going to talk about this part. And you could almost have it all rehearsed, or at least have that in your mind a little bit to memorize.
Well, you bring up an interesting point about memorization. And that is one of the techniques that I use, which is to tether certain words, certain concepts to actual gestures. So that when you go like this, and you go like this, and you go like this, and you go like this, you don't even have to remember the words. The gestures actually push you through and toward the idea. Plus, you have all of that momentum. So I really use muscle memory to help me in terms of memorization. So you're right. It requires that you not just play a good game in your head. You actually have to speak the words, experience them, and allow the full body expression to be a part of your practice.
Yeah. Tony Robbins talked about that in one of his training programs, is anchoring physical movement, anchored with an emotion, anchored with your talk, and all connected. So it becomes just a physical cue. When this happens, this feeling happens, this thing comes out of your face.
Right.
So that's really powerful.
Now, did you ever see the TEDx spoof where the guy is actually stating what he's doing? If you haven't, guys, look it up.
That'd be great to see.
No, that is a great one.
Now I'm walking to the left and I will steeple my fingers. It was just so funny. Now I will encourage applause. Everything he said, it was, as a speaker, that was just fabulous. I don't know that it was ever a true TEDx or if it was just a spoof, but definitely look that up, Bill. That was, it's hilarious.
Well, for talking rectangles and squares and triangles, when we get into circles, come on.
Ooh, okay.
Come on, let's get to circle. No, I'm kidding. You guys made me think of something. You mentioned out of your book there, and we were just talking about the anchoring and everything. One of the concepts from the Bullies Suck book that I wrote that applies to this is one of the chapters was called "Don't Judge a Book by a Cover, but Everybody Does."
Right.
Because we do. All right. Now, whether or not that's fair or whatever, that's just the way it is. So in the context of business or presenting or things like that, you don't want to judge a book by its cover. What's the old famous thing? Sam Walton drove a pickup truck and he was a billionaire, right? So if someone rolls up in a VW that's all rusted out, it doesn't mean they don't have money, but it might. Indications are, right? And as humans, we will tend to glance and take the first 5 seconds in, and then that's what we're running with unless we see overwhelming evidence to the contrary. And even then we might still be resistant. So when you are going to be presenting, speaking, doing business, be mindful of, what do we got going on? What's the environment got going on? Are you showing up, fresh faced and everything else with your best energy and your best foot forward? These, all this counts. All of it counts.
Yes, that goes back to my training with my comedy troupe, as well as when I'm training other speakers. Hang up. So we all carry a backpack of rocks. Hopefully yours are not heavy, but we carry it. And I say, hang up your backpack outside the door. If you want to pick it back up on your way out, that's cool. But right now, all the S word stays out there. Let's clear. Got to have that clear canvas, that clear slate, and let's create right now. And oftentimes I don't think as many rocks are picked up on the way out. It's a choice.
I forget. Oh God, I forget who said it, but I remember hearing it and going, "That's really good." But
it might have been mine, Bill.
Could have been yours. Yeah. The point of the quote. The point of the quote is, it was something along the lines of many of us are carrying around all these burdens and everything, and it doesn't occur to us that we can just simply drop them.
What if?
Yeah.
Why not?
Hey, what if he just stopped that?
How about that? How about Stop It? That's your next book.
Yeah. Doc, it hurts when I do this. Okay, well, don't do that, right?
Cut it out. All right. So this is always an interesting topic because as we were promoting this episode of Blabbit, we were saying Lisa David Olsen is coming on, business humorist. What about people who don't feel that they're funny? How do you help them to glean some sort of humor, even if it's a slight witticism that they fit into their talk or into their presentation? Is there a process that you go through? I realize for you, Lisa, it's a lot of it is intuitive, but is there an approach that you use to help others?
Yes. What you want to do is make it okay to share that embarrassing story or share that self-deprecating humor in a gentle way, nothing too mean. Most of the comics that we all enjoy are definitely teasing about themselves first. They put it out there. Maybe somebody is purposely wearing pants that are too short, and maybe they have a story that goes with it. I think pointing out the obvious connects us, and humor connects all of us. And once you start sharing a story, other people want to chime in. When I spoke at an event last week, I shared something and a lady absolutely interrupted me to yell out her story. And wow, that was different. So I acknowledged, but then kind of moved on because I had so many points to get to, but it was like, okay, so I've opened the floor apparently. But it was great that when you're writing, well, picture if the three of us were sitting around having snackies and chatting and we just started sharing old stories about speakers that we've worked with and things that were funny or pranks that we know of or things that happened in the dojo. We're going to come up with those things just like you do when you go, well, what if this happened? Well, then what if that happened? And what if you dressed up like this and did this? Everybody has those exaggerated stories. I mean, look at TikTok. It's made of that. And if you allow yourself to play and pretend and to explore, you will have that story. I was just in a group recently where everybody got to do a 60-second pitch to Irma Bombeck's team. And if of the 600 that joined the live feed, 20 were chosen. I was not. But the people that got to pitch, you had 60 seconds. And right out of the gate, everything was a shared story in the style of Irma Bombeck and saying, that this happened or that happened. And we connect through that and we immediately think of, yeah, that happened to my aunt once. So if you think of stories that you're open to share that might connect us, that's one way of looking at it, letting your guard down. First of all, what makes you laugh? For me, it's Carol Burnett show, and especially bloopers, because I always felt like I was there. That's how I ended up with a comedy troupe, short story. And
great show.
Yeah. When you think of what you love and what bloopers you want to see, if it makes you laugh, then find out a way to connect your story to make others laugh. If you're really looking for humor, it is in there. I will help you find it. I can.
And some of it can even be based on delivery, or in fact, most of it is. If you just believe that a story all by itself, just based on its merits, is going to sell, you're missing a whole nother vehicle, which is how you deliver it, how you time it. What is the punchline to the story, or what I refer to as closing the loop, so people know, number one, that you're done, and number two, what the moral of the story is, what the takeaway is from whatever that story is.
Yes. Some of the best humor, you think that joke was done, and then they toss in that extra sentence. There's some great stand-up comics that can do that. You laugh, and then you got that second wave laugh. That is genius. And if you're ever looking for how to be a stand-up comic, join the Facebook group of Dobie Maxwell. He's got the Maxwell Method as a Facebook group, and he shares all these tips for free. And he's got other stand-up comics that are joining and sharing and asking for advice. It is a wonderful group. You don't have to want to be a stand-up comic. You just maybe want to find your funnier side.
Mm-hmm.
What do they call that technique? And I don't know if it's just strictly in comedy, but they'll hit a joke in the punchline, and then they'll say something that relates to an earlier thing or an earlier story they said in the bit, and that's
the callback.
The callback. Okay, thank you. Yeah,
that's
those
the best.
Always,
and
those always kill me. Yeah.
And Bill, you're right, because a callback when you're giving a talk, you give a callback because somebody in the audience dropped their fork or something, and you give a callback to that. The whole room is in on that. You are together. I mean, not pointing out that somebody dropped, but anything like that. I do interactive stuff, so I talk to my audience, like table to table for an exercise that I do. I create something on the spot. And when I'm doing that, I get plenty of callbacks because people are so willing to share things. When you have a question, they just love to be the one to answer. You bring that back later, and they are the smartest person in the room.
Right. It gives us a sense of continuity, as if we're in on what the roadmap is. So in other words, the prize for paying attention to what I said or what I did 10 minutes ago, this is the gift. In other words, you paid attention, you get the gift, and that feels like you've given them, the listeners, something extra.
Right. Very good point.
Now, and Lisa, would you agree that if you're struggling with, coming up with a story or humor or whatever, I know one of the places that I can just get, and I can do a whole bit just on being a parent and the stuff with the kids. I mean, hopefully if anyone is a parent or whatever, and you do want to work on humor and stuff like that, start with all the funny things that your kids have said or done, or the experiences. I mean, I got some, I was thinking of one, I was laughing when you were talking about it. I'm like, oh my God. So that can be something to at least start with it. Maybe you're thinking, well, I don't have anything funny in my life. Well, actually, if you got kids, yes, you do. You can start there, or your pets.
Yes, and as long as you make it open enough and not just insider joke, because we all have the insider jokes, and you could turn to your best friend and say, oh, like orange, and you guys would laugh until you're piddling. But it has to be this universal. And you know what, everybody? You have permission to embellish a story to make it great for the stage. You personally, today's your magical day. We give you permission to embellish a story because it's your story. When I went to write my memoir, and I was all in my head about, but what if my siblings remembered another way? And once I finally gave myself permission to write my story, I even put it in the book. If you want to share your version, I'm going to be first in line to buy your copy, but this is my version, Nice. Just give yourself that forgiveness and that permission.
I love that. I love the concept of giving yourself permission. So on that, we're going to wrap up this episode. And Lisa, if anybody wants to laugh until they piddle, how do they get in touch with you?
Lisa David Olsen. Yes, a callback to the piddle. Lisa David Olsen on Facebook. I'm very fast on that. I've got a group on Facebook that is all humor, and that is called Counterclockwise, both with the letter C, Counterclockwise. And that's in Facebook. So please join that. In just over a year, I got 4,000 people joining. You know what? We want to laugh. So that's where you can find me if you want to talk about training or anything else. And Lisa David Olsen on LinkedIn and Instagram, or through Paul, because he's a cool guy. And tell Glenn I'm sorry about our fight and that he wouldn't be here. But whatever, $50 he still owes me. And no wonder he wasn't here.
That's okay. Bill will talk him off the ledge. Okay. And Bill, thank you so much for filling in.
Pleasure. Anytime, Lisa, it was a pleasure.
So cool to meet you. I know we'll be in touch.
Yeah, 100%.
Thanks, guys. Another
Paul.
Excellent episode of Blabbit, if I may say so myself. Everyone have a great weekend. We'll see you right back here next Friday.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Peace out. Everybody be well.